And we have another video coming up from Greg Lestikow and Gabriela de Oliveira, and they'll be presenting on Cambodia Sanitation Development Bond.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to spend a few minutes today talking about a specific type of innovative financing mechanism, the Development Impact Bond. We'll be talking about the concept of impact bonds generally, and then also using the Cambodia Rural Sanitation Development Impact Bond as a case study. And I'll just call that the Cambodia DIB from here on out. As you'll see on this slide, the key players in the Cambodia DIB are USAID, the outcomes buyer, Stone Family Foundation, or SFF, which has provided upfront risk capital as the DIB investor, and iDE, the implementing partner. I'll just note that this isn't a pitch per se, but rather an educational presentation that we hope will set the stage for a separate pitch from my colleague Samir from iDE Bangladesh on a development impact bond opportunity in that country. Some quick intros. My name is Greg Lestikow. I'm the Global WASH Director at iDE. iDE is an international NGO that for the past 35 years or so has been building markets and leveraging the power of entrepreneurs to increase incomes and improve livelihoods for the rural poor. I'll be presenting with my colleague Gabriela de Oliveira, who's the Senior Analyst at Social Finance. Social Finance led the feasibility and design work for the Cambodia DIB, and they've led similar work across a wide range of outcomes-based approaches in WASH, health, education, and employment around the world. The Cambodia DIB is a critical investment in iDE's flagship sanitation program in Cambodia, the Sanitation Marketing Scale-Up Program, or SMSU. SMSU is the first market-based sanitation program in the world to reach significant scale. Since 2009, the program has driven the sale of over 340,000 high-quality improved toilets in rural parts of the country. The team in Cambodia started on this journey by first listening to the needs of customers and local business owners to understand their needs and desires when it came to sanitation. We used these insights to design sanitation products like the Easy Latrine, which is an aspirational but affordable offset pit toilet. With the right product in place, we then train and provide ongoing coaching to local small businesses who manufacture, deliver, and install these products. And then we train and manage sales agents to generate demand through door-to-door sales presentations. During the first two phases of SMSU, we contributed to an increase in improved sanitation coverage from 29% in 2012 to 73% in 2020. Our goal in SMSU has always been to drive toward full coverage as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's especially important because so many of the health benefits associated with improved sanitation only start accruing as coverage rates get into the range of 80% or greater, and as whole communities move toward open defecation-free status, or ODF, as we say in the sector. So in designing the third phase of the program, we knew that one of our primary targets would be to helping a larger number of villages reach ODF status. And as we neared the end of SMSU 2, or the second phase of SMSU, in 2017, we also knew that we needed to evolve our model to reach the remaining non-toilet owners who were in large part harder to reach, poorer, and more marginalized than the households that we've reached previously.
So this third phase of the sanitation marketing program is about reaching the most marginalized and lowest income households in order to be able to get the village level to ODF status. This is something that iDE hadn't done before. It was uncharted territory and so needed a different funding approach for a number of reasons. Firstly, scaling the sanitation marketing program to this point where whole villages could be applying for ODF status was new territory. Reaching the most marginalized households was likely to be more expensive, was likely to need different and adaptive approaches. And so, as it was uncharted territory for iDE, they needed more flexibility to adapt and test things that they didn't necessarily know whether or not they would work. And so, flexible funding and that space for adaptation were really core requirements of iDE being able to take this on as a challenge. So why a DIB? An impact bond is about having clear outcomes from the outset. All partners know what they're trying to achieve and have agreed the results that they want to achieve by the end. These results are measurable, they are attributable, and so in this case, the 1,600 villages applying for ODF status was a really clear way to get all partners to the end goal, achieving that status, which then starts to reap the health benefits on a village level. An impact bond also made sense because of iDE's track record. this kind of approach isn't always the best for smaller organisations that don't have experience and don't have the track record that iDE has. SFF and iDE have been working together for a number of years, and so there is a trusting and long-standing working relationship between them, which allows SFF to go into the impact bond with confidence that iDE will deliver on the outcomes that they set out to deliver. Also, iDE have really strong data management systems, and that's a really, really important part of being able to do an impact bond well. Data needs to be timely, used to understand what's happening on the ground, and therefore adapt so that outcomes can be achieved. So social finance's role was to scope the feasibility of this impact bond and then lead the partners through the design and to launch. Just to talk through the different roles in the impact bond, the donor, sometimes known as the outcomes funder, and in this case USAID, only pays on the pre-agreed outcomes when or if they are achieved. So in this case, that's villages getting to that ODF status. The social investor, therefore, needs to provide the funding up front. They pre-finance the programme and take on the risk of the programme not achieving the outcomes that the donor will pay on. In this case, that's Stone Family Foundation. That leaves the service provider who is accountable to delivering the results on the ground. They need to deliver the outcomes that have been pre-agreed with all parties so that the donor could repay the social investor for pre-financing the programme. So what does that mean in practice? A traditional based approach generally designs a programme up front, decides exactly which activities, timeframes and costs go alongside that, delivers the programme, and then afterwards looks back on what worked well and what didn't. An outcomes-based mindset, and we do find it is a mindset that has to change gear when people are in that design process, is about agreeing the results at the beginning from the outset with all partners. Those results are agreed in a data-informed way and in conversations involving all partners. And then that creates room for iteration and adaptation when it comes to delivery, because activities and inputs aren't pre-decided, only outcomes and results are. And then that leads us to the donor, who will only ever pay if those outcomes are achieved.
Great. I'll finish off the presentation with a quick look at the final design of the Cambodia DIB, which was finalized in November 2019. As Gabby pointed out, there's three primary actors. There's Stone as the investor, USAID as the outcomes buyer, and iDE as the implementer. And I'll point out a couple of additional key features here too. The first is the size of the DIB. In all, USAID will provide a maximum of $9.9 million in outcomes funding payments. Based on our financial projections, this is enough for iDE to achieve our outcomes target, while also allowing for the Stone Family Foundation to recoup its initial investment and to earn an attractive return. And iDE also has the potential to earn a return. The second hallmark of the impact bond is its simplicity. So there were a series of discussions during the design phase, and we ended up with one simple outcome metric: villages that claim open defecation-free status. So Stone is paid a per village amount by USAID, and that funding is then recycled into funding the ongoing operations of the SMSU 3 program so that we can continue delivering outcomes and impact. So keeping this outcome metric simple reduced the transaction costs between the three parties here, and it simplifies the reporting so that we can use a combination of data from iDE's own internal monitoring systems and information from the government-run ODF claim process. And finally, one thing that's not really represented in this diagram is the flexibility that the DIB has granted iDE so that we can adapt our model over time. SMSU 3 looks a lot different from earlier phases of the program in several ways, and especially in the increased engagement that we have with local government and other institutions to help us reach and assist those households that are least able to afford a toilet. This is new ground for us in many ways, and the outcomes-based structure of the DIB allows us to innovate and learn as we go in a way that more traditional donor funding just doesn't. And that's it on DIBs and specifically the Cambodia Rural Sanitation Development Impact Bond. Gabby and my contact information is here, so please do feel free to get in touch with questions. Neither of us is going to be attending this forum because of time zone constraints, but I'd also encourage you to connect during networking times with my iDE colleagues Samir Karki and Michelle Doggett, both of whom are going to present later in the session. and with Chris Nicoletti, who's IDE's Senior Director of Impact and Analytics. Thanks so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.